Jake Morrison stared at the empty screens in Luna Station's communication hub. 3 months had passed since the last signal came from the outer galaxy. The silence felt wrong. For 20 years, space had been filled with chatter from dozens of alien species. Trade routes buzzed with activity. Diplomatic channels carried endless negotiations. Scientific exchanges shared knowledge across light years. Now there was nothing. Dr. Lisa Kane worked at her desk nearby, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. She was Earth's best expert on alien languages. The scattered signals she collected told a frightening story. The Zephyrian Empire, masters of quantum communication, had sent their final message exactly 93 days ago. Their words still echoed in her mind. The sleepers wake. All worlds must flee. We have failed. May the stars forgive us. After that message, the Zephyrians vanished. Their entire civilization, spread across 40 star systems, went silent in a single day. No distress calls, no evacuation signals, just empty space where billions of beings once lived. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and checked the deep space arrays again. The massive dishes pointed toward different sectors of the galaxy, searching for any sign of life. Most sectors showed normal background radiation. But something strange was happening near the galactic core. Ancient signals were broadcasting on frequencies that had been dead for millions of years. Lisa called him over to her workstation. Her face was pale. She had been translating fragments of these old signals for weeks. The language was unlike anything in their databases. It was older than the oldest known civilizations. Much older. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I finally cracked part of the transmission. It's not a message. It's a warning. Something called the Voidborn." She showed him her translation. The ancient text spoke of beings that consumed entire star systems. They devoured light itself, leaving nothing but empty darkness behind. According to the records, they had swept across the galaxy once before, destroying thousands of civilizations. Only by working together had the surviving species managed to put them into a deep sleep. The signals indicated that something had awakened them. Lisa's analysis pointed to a specific source, a human deep space probe launched 50 years ago. The Voyager 7 had been Earth's message to the universe, carrying information about humanity and invitations for peaceful contact. It had wandered far beyond its intended path, eventually reaching the galactic core where ancient guardians maintained the Voidborn's prison. The probe's simple radio signals had somehow disrupted the containment field. Earth's attempt at friendship had doomed the galaxy. Jake immediately contacted Admiral Ben Harper at Earth Defense Command. Within hours, emergency protocols were activated. The Sol system's defenses came online. Hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves throughout the asteroid belt. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels showed their true military nature. Admiral Harper called a meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 12 species gathered via quantum link, their holographic forms appearing in Luna Station's main conference room. Jake had never seen so many aliens look afraid. The Altrurians spoke first. Their peaceful blue faces showed deep concern. They had always been the galaxy's diplomats, solving conflicts through endless discussions. Their leader, Elder Zahn, explained that the outer rim worlds were going dark one by one. Entire systems were simply disappearing from all sensors. The Krenth Federation reported similar losses. Their advanced technology, capable of moving planets and building artificial stars, meant nothing against this threat. General Vex, their military commander, admitted that their automated defense networks were useless. The Voidborn seemed to feed on energy itself. One by one, each species shared the same story. Their colonies were vanishing. Their fleets were powerless. Their greatest weapons only made the enemy stronger. Fear filled their voices as they described something beyond their understanding. Then Elder Zahn did something that shocked Jake. The proud Altrurian leader, representative of the galaxy's most advanced civilization, bowed his head toward the human delegation. "We need Earth's help," he said simply. The other aliens looked uncomfortable. For decades, they had treated humanity as children. Humans were young, primitive, and violent. While other species had evolved beyond war, humans still fought among themselves. While aliens built perfect societies, humans remained divided and aggressive. The galaxy had tolerated Earth but never truly accepted it as an equal. Now they were begging for help from the species they had looked down upon. Admiral Harper studied the assembled aliens carefully. His weathered face showed no emotion as he listened to their pleas. Jake knew the Admiral was thinking about something the aliens didn't understand. While they had spent centuries pursuing peace and prosperity, Earth had never stopped preparing for war. Human nature remained unchanged. The same instincts that drove ancient humans to hunt mammoths and fight rival tribes still burned in modern humanity. Earth's military had studied every possible threat, including ones that didn't exist yet. Human strategists planned for wars against enemies they had never met, using weapons they hadn't invented, in battles that might never happen. The galaxy saw this as primitive and wasteful. Now it might be their salvation. "We'll help," Admiral Harper said finally. "But we do this our way." The aliens agreed immediately. They had no choice. Reports continued to arrive of systems going dark. The Voidborn were moving faster now, consuming star after star in their path toward the inner galaxy. Mathematical projections showed they would reach the core worlds within months. Jake watched the council session end and felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity had accidentally unleashed an ancient evil upon the galaxy. Now they had to find a way to stop it. The peaceful aliens who had always dismissed human aggression were counting on that same violent nature to save them. As the holographic representatives faded away, Jake looked out at the stars through Luna Station's observation deck. Somewhere in that darkness, an enemy older than recorded history was awakening. The Voidborn had slept for millions of years, dreaming of the day they would consume everything that lived and breathed. That day had come, and Earth's children would have to answer. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching Earth's war fleet assemble in high orbit. 60 ships hung in formation around the blue planet, each one built for a single purpose: to destroy enemies that threatened humanity. Unlike the sleek, beautiful vessels of other species, human ships looked brutal and functional. They bristled with weapons and armor, designed by people who understood that space was not a peaceful place. Alex had commanded the Defiance for 3 years. The ship was Earth's newest battlecruiser, equipped with experimental weapons that made alien diplomats nervous during peace talks. Railguns that fired projectiles at 30% light speed, fusion warheads powerful enough to crack moons, plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor. The ship represented everything the galaxy found disturbing about human nature. Dr. Maria Santos briefed the assembled fleet commanders in the Defiance's war room. As Earth's leading military historian, she had spent decades studying how humans fought differently from other species. Her research had identified patterns that made the Galactic Council uncomfortable. While aliens evolved past their aggressive instincts, humans had kept theirs sharp. Every other species in the galaxy unified their governments centuries ago, Maria explained to the gathered captains. They eliminated competition between their own kind. They created perfect societies where everyone agrees and conflict is impossible. They see this as evolution. She activated a holographic display showing human history. Wars, revolutions, and conflicts stretched across thousands of years. Even in the space age, Earth remained divided into competing nations and ideologies. Humans still argued, fought, and competed with each other over resources, territory, and beliefs. "We never lost our edge," Maria continued. "While they built utopias, we stayed ready for war. While they trusted in peace, we prepared for violence. What they call primitive, we call survival." The briefing was interrupted by urgent reports from the Middle Rim worlds. The Voidborn had reached the Eldorian colonies. These peaceful beings had built magnificent crystal cities that harmonized with natural environments. Their entire civilization was based on beauty, art, and spiritual growth. They had no weapons, no armies, and no understanding of violence. The crystal cities died in hours. Sensor data showed the Voidborn ships descending like black storms. They consumed the city's energy, drained the life from the planets, and moved on. Millions of Eldorians simply ceased to exist. Their final transmissions spoke of creatures that looked like living shadows, beings made of pure hunger that devoured light itself. Next came reports from the Krenth Federation. These aliens had mastered technology beyond human understanding. Their automated defense systems could destroy entire fleets without organic crew intervention. Robotic factories built new weapons faster than enemies could adapt. Artificial intelligence networks coordinated defenses across hundreds of worlds simultaneously. None of it mattered. The Voidborn fed on energy, including the power that ran Krenth technology. Their defensive networks became feeding grounds. Their robotic armies provided fuel for the enemy. Their artificial minds went silent as the darkness consumed them. But then something unexpected happened. A small human mining colony on Kepler 442b encountered two void-born scout ships. The colony had no military defenses, no advanced weapons, and no outside support. It was just a rough settlement of 300 miners led by foreman Rick Barnes, extracting rare metals from asteroid belts. Rick had served in Earth's Marine Corps before retiring to mining. When the black ships appeared over his colony, he didn't call for help or try to negotiate. He gathered his people and prepared to fight. The miners used industrial equipment as weapons. Drilling lasers became artillery. Explosive charges for mining became bombs. Cargo haulers became ramming vessels. They fought like cornered animals. When the Voidborn tried to land, the miners collapsed mine shafts on them. When shadow creatures emerged from the ships, humans met them with improvised flamethrowers and chemical weapons. Rick led a team that sneaked aboard one Voidborn vessel and detonated its power core from the inside. For the first time in a million years, the Voidborn took casualties. 2 scout ships were destroyed by humans using mining tools and desperate courage. The colony was eventually overrun, but not before Rick transmitted everything they had learned about fighting these creatures. The galaxy watched the battle recordings in shock. Other species saw heroes making noble sacrifices. Human military analysts saw something different, proof that the Voidborn could be killed. Admiral Harper ordered immediate mobilization of Earth's entire fleet. Ships that had been scattered across human space converged on Sol. Ancient defense platforms hidden in asteroid fields revealed themselves. Secret weapon development projects entered final testing. Earth's military-industrial complex, built over centuries of human conflict, shifted into total war production. Captain Turner received his orders personally from Admiral Harper. The Defiance would lead the first human battle group into Voidborn territory. Their mission was simple: learn how to kill these creatures and teach the rest of humanity. Unlike alien species that fought to defend their territory, humans fought to eliminate threats completely. The difference was crucial. Aliens wanted to protect what they had. Humans wanted to destroy what threatened them. Alien military doctrine focused on minimizing losses and preserving resources. Human doctrine focused on achieving victory regardless of cost. As the fleet prepared to depart, Turner read reports from the Outer Rim. More colonies were falling every day. The Kythera Collective, masters of biological technology, watched their living ships die as the Voidborn drained their life force. The Nexari Union, experts in quantum manipulation, found their reality-bending weapons useless against creatures that existed partially outside normal space. Each fallen civilization had the same story. They had tried to fight the Voidborn using their greatest strengths. Advanced technology, superior numbers, exotic weapons, and scientific understanding all proved worthless. The enemy was too alien, too ancient, and too hungry to be stopped by conventional means. But humans had never been conventional. While other species had specialized in specific areas of development, humans remained generalists. They could adapt to any environment, learn any skill, and use any weapon. More importantly, they retained the killer instinct that evolution had bred into them during millions of years of survival on a hostile world. Turner watched Earth disappear behind him as the Defiance entered hyperspace. Somewhere ahead waited an enemy that had devoured countless civilizations. The peaceful galaxy that had dismissed humanity as primitive and violent was counting on those same qualities to save them. The irony was not lost on him. Earth's children were going to war to protect a universe that had never truly accepted them. General Kate Sullivan coordinated Earth's military response from the Sol Defense Command Center, buried deep beneath the Mojave Desert. Banks of screens showed the tactical situation across the galaxy, as red markers indicated fallen worlds and yellow ones marked active battle zones. The Voidborn advance had accelerated, consuming 3 star systems in the past week alone. But for the first time since the crisis began, some of those markers were turning green. Human forces were making a difference. Unlike the peaceful aliens who fought defensive wars, Earth's military doctrine was built around total annihilation of enemies. The strategy was simple and brutal. Don't just stop the Voidborn, eradicate them completely. Give them no chance to regroup, adapt, or return. Turn their own hunger against them by denying them anything to consume. Admiral Tony Richards commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the UES Vengeance, a massive dreadnought armed with weapons that violated several galactic treaties. The ship's nuclear arsenal alone could sterilize a dozen worlds. Its biological warfare systems carried viruses designed to attack silicon-based lifeforms. Most importantly, its crew understood that mercy was a luxury they couldn't afford. The Vengeance led a battle group of 30 ships into the Kepler sector, where void-born forces had established a feeding ground among the ruins of the Aldorian colonies. The beautiful crystal cities were now blackened husks drained of all energy and life, but Richards wasn't there to mourn the dead. He was there to kill the creatures responsible. The first engagement shocked both human forces and their alien observers. When void-born ships tried to drain energy from human vessels, they found something unexpected. Earth ships were built with multiple redundant power systems and manual backup controls. When one system failed, others took over. When energy weapons proved useless, humans switched to kinetic projectiles. Fired by magnetic acceleration, Lieutenant Sam Brooks led his fighter squadron in a maneuver that became known as ramming speed. When his plasma cannons ran out of power and his missiles proved ineffective, he ordered his pilots to use their ships as guided weapons. Human fighters, built heavy and sturdy unlike the elegant alien designs, punched through void-born hulls and detonated their fusion cores inside enemy vessels. Sam died along with half his squadron, but they took down 4 void-born destroyers. The survivors transmitted tactical data that would save thousands of lives in future battles. The galaxy watched recordings of human pilots deliberately crashing into enemy ships and couldn't understand the mentality. Aliens saw waste and tragedy. Humans saw effective tactics. Dr. Helen Foster worked around the clock in her laboratory aboard the research vessel UES Discovery. Her team had analyzed wreckage from void-born ships and made crucial discoveries about their biology. The creatures were not entirely physical. They existed partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions, allowing them to feed on energy itself. But this unique nature also made them vulnerable. Specific quantum frequencies could disrupt their dimensional anchor points, forcing them back into normal space where conventional weapons could hurt them. The problem was generating those frequencies required massive amounts of power and precise calibration that could only be done manually from close range. Helen's solution was typically human. Build a weapon that someone could carry into the heart of enemy territory and activate by hand. It was essentially a suicide mission. But when word spread through the fleet, volunteers numbered in the thousands. Earth's military had always understood that some victories required ultimate sacrifice. Commander Paul Davis implemented what became known as Protocol Scorched Earth during the battle for the Rigel system. When void-born forces surrounded 3 human colonies, Davis made a decision that horrified the galaxy. Rather than let the enemy consume the worlds and grow stronger, he ordered the complete sterilization of all 3 planets. Human ships bombarded their own colonies with nuclear weapons, turning thriving worlds into radioactive wastelands. The colonists had already been evacuated, but the message was clear. If the void-born wanted to feed, they would find nothing but poison. Better a dead galaxy than a consumed one. The tactic worked. Faced with worlds that offered no sustenance, void-born forces began avoiding systems where humans had a presence. They learned to fear the species that would destroy everything rather than surrender it to the enemy. As the war progressed, human tactics became increasingly brutal and effective. Captain Lisa Chen perfected the art of boarding actions, leading Marines into void-born ships to plant quantum disruptors by hand. Major Bob Miller developed swarm tactics using thousands of small drones that overwhelmed enemy point defenses. Colonel Janet Ross created specialized virus weapons that attacked the quantum matrices, keeping void-born creatures stable in normal space. The Galactic Council watched these developments with growing unease. The same ruthlessness that made humans effective against the void-born also made them terrifying to observe. Alien species that had evolved past violence found themselves both grateful for and afraid of their savage protectors. Reports came in from across the galaxy as human forces engaged void-born fleets. The battle for Procyon saw Admiral Karen White ram her damaged flagship into a void-born mothership, taking both vessels down in a fusion explosion visible from 3 light-years away. The defense of Wolf 359 ended when Captain Doug Adams detonated a solar bomb inside the local star, creating a nova that destroyed everything in the system, including the void-born fleet. Human casualties mounted into the millions, but the advance stopped. For the first time since the crisis began, void-born forces were retreating instead of advancing. Ancient creatures that had consumed galaxies were learning to fear a young species that fought with desperate intelligence and absolute determination. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker led the assault on what appeared to be a void-born command vessel near Proxima Centauri. His boarding party fought through corridors filled with shadow creatures and quantum traps. When conventional weapons failed, they used improvised explosives made from ship components. When those ran out, they fought with knives and bare hands. Parker's team discovered something crucial in the ship's core, a navigation system that showed the location of the main void-born fleet. Hundreds of massive vessels were gathering near the galactic center, preparing for a final assault on the inner worlds. The coordinates showed their target, Earth itself. The void-born had identified humanity as their primary threat. They were coming to eliminate the species that had dared to fight back. Everything else was now secondary to destroying the small blue world that had produced such dangerous children. Kate Sullivan received Parker's transmission and immediately understood the implications. The enemy was done playing with isolated colonies and outer rim worlds. They were coming for the heart of human civilization. Earth would face the largest concentration of void-born forces ever assembled. She looked at the tactical displays showing human fleets scattered across the galaxy, fighting dozens of separate battles. Bringing them home would mean abandoning the aliens who depended on human protection, but leaving Earth defended by only the Sol System fleet would be suicide. The choice was terrible but clear. Earth's children had always known they might have to choose between saving others and saving themselves. The Galactic Council emergency session convened in virtual space as representatives from surviving civilizations gathered to discuss the unthinkable. On the holographic displays, red markers showed the approaching void-born fleet. Over 300 massive vessels converging on the Sol system like a dark tide. Earth had perhaps 2 weeks before the enemy arrived in force. Elder Zahn of the Altrurians spoke first, his blue face etched with worry that went beyond mere fear. "The humans have saved us all," he said slowly, "but in doing so they have become something we never expected. We asked them to fight for us, and now we must ask ourselves, what have we unleashed?" The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species represented had witnessed human tactics firsthand. The brutal efficiency, the willingness to sacrifice anything for victory, the complete absence of mercy toward enemies. Humanity had stopped the void-born advance. But their methods had shocked civilizations that had forgotten what true war looked like. General Vex of the Krenth Federation shared battle recordings from the Outer Rim campaigns. Human forces using nuclear weapons as standard ammunition, biological warfare deployed against silicon-based entities, entire star systems sterilized rather than allowed to fall into enemy hands. Soldiers who smiled while detonating suicide bombs inside enemy vessels. "They fight like demons," Vex said quietly. "But they are our demons now. Without them, we would all be consumed. With them..." He let the sentence hang unfinished. The Nexari representative, a crystalline being whose species manipulated reality itself, provided the most disturbing analysis.
Humanity has not simply adapted to fight the void-born.
They have embraced the role of destroyer. They enjoy the violence. Watch their faces during battle. They are not just defending, they are hunting. Meanwhile, Major Linda Hayes prepared her battle group for the final assault on the void-born primary fleet. Her force consisted entirely of human vessels because alien crews could no longer stomach the tactics required for victory. The mission was straightforward: penetrate the enemy formation and deliver a quantum weapon to their command ship. Regardless of losses, Linda had volunteered for the assignment despite knowing it was likely a one-way trip. Her brother had died defending a Krenth colony during the early stages of the war. Her parents had been killed when void-born scouts attacked a human research station. For her, this was not about saving the galaxy. This was about revenge. The weapon she carried had been Dr. Helen Foster's final creation. Helen had died testing the prototype, consumed by quantum feedback when the first field test went wrong. But her sacrifice had perfected the design. The device could disrupt void-born dimensional anchor points across an entire fleet, forcing them into normal space where conventional weapons could destroy them. The catch was typical of human engineering solutions. Someone had to manually activate it from within the enemy formation. The weapon required precise calibration that could only be achieved by direct contact with void-born quantum matrices. It was a suicide mission disguised as a technical requirement. Linda's fleet consisted of 40 ships, each carrying a volunteer crew that understood they were unlikely to survive the mission. Unlike alien military traditions that emphasized preserving valuable personnel, human doctrine accepted that some victories required ultimate sacrifice. The crews had recorded final messages for their families and made peace with their fate. Back on Earth, President Carl Johnson faced the most difficult decision in human history. His scientific advisors had presented him with an option that could end the void-born threat permanently, but the cost was almost unthinkable. Dr. Amy Clark, the lead researcher on the project, stood before him in the Oval Office with data that made his hands shake. "We can do it," Amy said simply. "We can build a weapon that will destroy every void-born in the galaxy. But the quantum cascade effect will sterilize approximately 25% of all star systems. Billions of innocent aliens will die along with the enemy." The weapon was based on the same quantum disruption technology that Helen Foster had developed, but scaled up to galactic proportions. It would create a cascade effect that rippled through quantum dimensions, destroying any entity that existed partially outside normal space. The void-born would be eliminated completely, but the collateral damage would be catastrophic. Johnson looked at the projections showing which systems would be affected. The weapon would spare Earth and the core worlds, but outer rim civilizations would be wiped out entirely. Species that had survived millions of years would cease to exist. The cure would be almost as deadly as the disease. Amy continued her briefing with the cold precision of a scientist who had already made peace with the horror she was describing. "The Altrurians will lose 80% of their colonies. The Nexari Union will be completely destroyed. Smaller species like the Cathara and the Valdris will become extinct, but the void-born will be gone forever." The president studied the faces of his advisors, looking for alternatives that didn't exist. Military projections showed that conventional warfare would not be enough. Even if Linda's mission succeeded in disrupting the primary fleet, other void-born forces remained scattered throughout the galaxy. They would eventually regroup and return stronger than before. Meanwhile, alien representatives continued their emergency session, now focused on a new fear: what would happen after the war ended? Humanity had saved them, but at what cost to galactic civilization? Reports filtered in of human colonies expanding into territories abandoned by fled or destroyed alien populations. Human military bases being established in formerly neutral systems. Earth's fleet growing larger and more powerful with each victory. "They are not conquerors in the traditional sense," observed the Valdris ambassador, her insectoid features reflecting deep concern. "They do not seek to rule us directly, but they are becoming the only species capable of enforcing order. Whether we like it or not, we are becoming dependent on their protection." The session was interrupted by reports from Linda's assault force. The human fleet had engaged the void-born armada in the space between star systems, far from any inhabited worlds. The battle was unlike anything previously recorded. Massive void-born vessels, each the size of a moon, faced human ships that looked like toys in comparison. But size meant nothing when humans fought with quantum weapons and total commitment. Linda's flagship, the UES Retribution, punched through the enemy formation using a tactic that no alien species would have attempted: ramming speed combined with quantum field disruption. Her ship's hull cracked and her crew died around her, but she reached the void-born command vessel. The final transmission from Linda's team showed her manually calibrating the quantum weapon while shadow creatures tried to stop her. Her voice remained steady even as the ship died around her. "Weapon armed. Initiating cascade in 3, 2, 1. The explosion was visible across half the galaxy. Quantum energy ripped through dimensional barriers, forcing the entire void-born fleet into normal space where physics applied and death was possible. Human ships that had survived the assault moved in to finish what Linda had started. But even as victory became certain, the cost was becoming clear. Amy Clark finalized her weapon design aboard a specially constructed vessel that would serve as both delivery system and tomb. She would pilot it into the quantum cascade zone and ensure the detonation occurred at precisely the right coordinates to maximize effectiveness. President Johnson gave the final authorization, knowing that history would judge him as either humanity's savior or the galaxy's destroyer. The weapon launched from a hidden base in the Kuiper Belt, accelerating toward the galactic core where the remaining voidborn forces waited. Amy's last transmission was brief and professional. Cascade weapon deployed. Effect will reach maximum propagation in 72 hours. Recommend all ships maintain safe distance from quantum disruption zones. Tell my family I chose this. Clark out. The galaxy held its breath as Amy's sacrifice rippled through space and time, carrying death to an ancient evil and to billions of innocent beings who happened to exist in the wrong dimensions at the wrong time. 6 months after the quantum cascade weapon ended the voidborn threat, the galaxy struggled to understand what it had become. The ancient enemy was gone, eliminated so completely that no trace remained of their billion-year reign of terror. But in their place stood a new reality that filled the surviving species with a different kind of fear. Ambassador John Lewis represented Earth at the Reformed Galactic Council, meeting in a new location because the old one had been destroyed in the cascade effect. The surviving alien representatives treated him with a mixture of gratitude and terror that made every diplomatic session uncomfortable. They needed humanity's protection, but feared the protectors almost as much as they had feared the Voidborn. Elder Zahn, now representing what remained of the Altrurian civilization, formally offered humanity the leadership position on the council. His people had lost most of their colonies in the cascade, but they understood the price of survival. Earth has proven itself the galaxy's defender, he said, though his voice carried undertones of resignation rather than celebration. John declined the offer politely but firmly. Earth would not rule the galaxy, but neither would it be ruled by it. Humanity had learned that the universe was not a peaceful place, and they would never again trust their survival to others. The new relationship would be based on mutual respect and human independence, whether the aliens liked it or not. The truth was that humanity no longer needed the galaxy's approval. Human colonies were expanding rapidly into territories abandoned by extinct or relocated species. Earth's industrial capacity, enhanced by captured voidborn technology, was producing ships and weapons at an unprecedented rate. Human scientists, no longer bound by galactic treaties, were developing technologies that made their former allies nervous. Colonel Mike Johnson established the Terran Defense Force headquarters on the world that had once been the Voidborn's primary staging area. The planet, now called Humanity's Watch, served as both a memorial to the war's victims and a warning to future threats. Massive human military installations covered the surface, monitoring deep space for any sign of returning danger. Mike had fought in the final battles against the Voidborn and understood the weight of responsibility his species now carried. Earth had not sought the role of galactic guardian, but events had forced it upon them. The question was not whether humanity would protect the galaxy, but whether the galaxy could accept the kind of protection humans offered. The defense installations on Humanity's Watch were unlike anything the peaceful aliens had ever seen. Weapon platforms capable of destroying entire fleets, research facilities developing new ways to kill unknown enemies, training centers where human soldiers learned to fight threats that didn't exist yet. The message was clear. Earth would never be unprepared again. Reports arrived daily from across the galaxy showing the new order taking shape. Human merchant fleets carried goods between worlds, but their cargo ships were armed like warships. Human diplomatic missions included military advisors who spoke softly, but carried weapons that could level cities. Human colonies welcomed alien refugees, but required them to accept human protection and human rules. The surviving alien species adapted to their new reality in different ways. The Krenth Federation, having lost half their territory in the Cascade, chose to align themselves closely with Earth. They offered their advanced manufacturing technology in exchange for human military protection. Their former pride in technological superiority had been replaced by pragmatic acceptance of human dominance. The Nexari Union had been completely destroyed in the Cascade, their reality-manipulating abilities proving useless against quantum disruption weapons. The few survivors lived in human-protected colonies, their ancient knowledge preserved but their civilization extinct. They served as a reminder of what happened to those who relied too heavily on abilities that could be taken away. Smaller species like the Cathara adapted by making themselves useful to humanity. Their biological sciences complemented human military research, creating new medical technologies and biological weapons. They understood that their survival depended on remaining valuable to their protectors. Captain Peter Adams, son of a void-born war veteran, received his first Deep Space Command assignment exactly 1 year after the Cascade. The UES Guardian was a new class of exploration vessel, designed to investigate regions of space that had been cleared of void-born influence. His mission was to map former enemy territories and establish human presence in areas that had been forbidden for millions of years. Peter understood the legacy he carried. His father had died in the assault on the void-born homeworld, one of thousands who never returned from that final battle. The war had taken a generation of Earth's finest soldiers and left the survivors to build a galaxy that their sacrifices had made possible. As the Guardian departed from humanity's watch, Peter looked back at the installations his species had built on the Deadworld. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the planet like mechanical moons. Defense grids extended throughout the system, creating a barrier that nothing could cross without human permission. It was a fortress built by a species that had learned the cost of being unprepared. The exploration mission took Peter's ship into regions that had been void-born territory for millions of years. Dead worlds marked their passage, planets stripped of all energy and life during the ancient wars. But between the grave worlds, his crew found something unexpected. Civilizations that had survived by hiding in dimensions the void-born couldn't reach. These hidden species emerged cautiously when they detected human ships. Some had been isolated for so long they had forgotten that other life existed. Others had watched the war from their dimensional shelters, too afraid to help but grateful for humanity's victory. All of them shared the same reaction when they met humans, a mixture of relief and fear that Peter found familiar. The reports he sent back to Earth described a galaxy full of survivors who had learned to hide from danger rather than face it. Entire species had spent millions of years in exile, developing technologies focused on concealment rather than conflict. They had art, science, and philosophy that surpassed human understanding, but they had forgotten how to fight. These discoveries reinforced what humanity already knew. They were alone in their willingness to face threats directly. The galaxy was full of species more advanced, more intelligent, and more peaceful than humans, but none of them had the killer instinct necessary for survival in a hostile universe. The final scene of the galactic transformation played out in schools across known space as the new generation learned about the war that had changed everything. Alien children studied recordings of human soldiers fighting impossible odds. They learned about Admiral Tony Richards ramming his flagship into a void-born mothership. They memorized the names of heroes like Linda Hayes and Amy Clark, who had died to save worlds they had never seen. But the lessons went deeper than simple heroism. The children learned that peace was not a natural state of the universe. They discovered that survival sometimes required choices that civilized beings preferred to avoid. Most importantly, they understood that Earth's children would always answer when the galaxy called for help. Regardless of the cost or consequences, the teachers, many of them survivors of the war, emphasized that humanity was not evil or cruel. They were simply different. While other species had evolved past violence, humans had evolved to master it. They were the galaxy's predators, but they were predators who protected prey rather than consuming it. In the end, the lesson was simple but profound. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of threats that could emerge without warning. When that happened, someone had to be ready to fight. Someone had to be willing to make the hard choices and pay the terrible prices that survival demanded. Earth's children had proven they would always be that someone, and the galaxy would never forget the small blue world that had saved them all from the darkness between the stars.